Hello and welcome to Foreigndesk on Benue Television. I am Susan Ayo. The headlines. List release leaders of Tanzania's main opposition party on bail. Russia's president accuses Ukraine of undermining his country's stability. Plus, Iran dismisses call to stand down threats against Israel. And the news in details. Senior leader of Tanzania's main opposition, Chadema party, including its chairman, Freeman Mbowe, and his deputy Duntu Lissu, have been released on bail after they were detained ahead of the youth rally. About 520 people were arrested in the nation's requirement for bail. The arrest raised fear that Tanzania was returning to the repressive rule of late President John Magufuli, despite his successor Samia Hassana lifting a ban on opposition gatherings and promising to restrain it was intended to cause violence, citing the party's rally calls for people to come together like the youth in Kenya. The party on Tuesday posted on X that its office in Mbeya were surrounded by police officers who were not allowing people in. Chadema spokesperson John Mrema confirmed the release of several party leaders, including Mbowe and Lissu, but said several others remained in detention. United Nations Secretary-General assigned Africa a permanent seat, stressing that the continent is underrepresented. Addressing the Council during the high-level debate, Guterres said that the composition of the security has failed to keep pace with the changing includes the 3 seats for African states, 2 each for Asian Pacific, Latin America, and the Caribbean, the Western European and other states, and 1 for Eastern Europe. In May, the Security Council called for the role of African countries to be strengthened in addressing global security and development. The Security Council, Sierra Leone President Julius Bior wants the veto abolished. According to analysts, Africa includes parts of the Athens, where still many active localized blazes, mostly around the towns of Marathon and Penteli. More than 700 firefighters, 199 fire engines, and 35 water-bombing aircraft have been involved in efforts to extinguish the fire, which first broke out around 35 kilometers north of the Greek capital, Petrakogonis, and said 2 firefighters had received treatment for burns while fighting the blaze. Officials say that fires broke out in 40 different locations and some areas saw flames as high as 25 meters. You're watching Foreigndesk on Benue Television. Let's take a quick break. Don't go away. Glad to have you back. Russia's President Vladimir Putin says Ukraine is trying to undermine Russian stability with its incursion into the south of the country, warning that it will receive what he described as a worthy response. Recall that last week, Ukrainian forces rammed through the Russian border and swept across western parts of the Kursk region. The incursion is Ukraine's biggest offensive across the border since the start of Russia's war in the country in 2022. Moscow has hit back militarily by deploying troops to quash the incursion. Russia's defense ministry said that additional forces and resources had arrived in Kursk without elaborating on the numbers. The military said the heavy tracked vehicles are being loaded onto automobile trailers for prompt delivery to the area where Ukrainian armed forces formations are being blocked and to ensure the safety of the road surface. Earlier, Kursk Governor Alexei Smirnov told Putin that 6 days of Ukrainian ground attacks on his region had resulted in the loss of 28 settlements, and the incursion was about 12 kilometers deep and 40 kilometers wide. Smirnov stated that 12 civilians had been killed and 121,000 people were evacuated or left the areas affected by fighting on their own. The total planned number of evacuations is 180,000. Ukrainian security service said Russians was trying to falsely accuse Kyiv's military of war crimes. The SBU said on Telegram that it had gathered information showing Russia may stage crimes that it would blame on Ukraine. Moscow and Kyiv regularly accuse each other of planning so-called false flag operations. They have also accused each other of starting a fire on the grounds of Europe's largest and now Russian-occupied Zaporizhzhia nuclear power station in Ukraine, with both sides reporting no sign of elevated radiation. Meanwhile, Ukraine's top commander Oleksandr Zelensky has said Kyiv's forces control 1,000 square meters of Russian territory as they press their biggest cross-border incursion in 2.5 years of conflict. Zelensky said that Ukraine continued to conduct an offensive operations in the Kursk region 7 days after it began. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said Russians has brought war to others and now it has coming back to Russia. But Russia's leader Vladimir Putin, who described the offensive as a major provocation, ordered Russian forces to push back the Ukrainians out of Russian territory. The acting governor of Kursk region, Alexei Smirnov, said that during a meeting with President Putin that 28 villages in the area had fallen to Ukrainian forces, that 12 civilians had been killed, and that the situation remains difficult. Ukrainian troops launched their surprise attack last Tuesday, advancing up to 30 kilometers into Russia. There was some skepticism at the Ukrainian commander-in-chief's assertion that his forces now controlled as much as 1,000 square kilometers of Russia's territory. The US-based Institute for the Study of War and not believe all the area was under Ukrainian control. Experts say that the offensive have boosted morale of the Ukrainian side, but brings fresh dangers to Ukraine. Iran has dismissed calls by France, Germany and the United Kingdom to stand down to its threats against Israel after the assassination of Hamas political leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran last month. Spokesperson of the Iran's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Nasser Kanani, in a statement on Tuesday said that the request lacks political logic and contradicts principles of international law. Kanani also said that the call constitutes public and practical support for Israel. He said the European countries raised no objection to the alleged international crimes of Israel and asked Iran not to respond to a violation of its sovereignty and territorial integrity. Kanani said that Iran was determined to deter Israel, calling on the three countries to once and for all stand up against the war in Gaza. Hamas has banned Israel for the July 31st assassination of Haniyeh in Tehran, where he was attending the inauguration of Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian. The Israeli government has made no claim of responsibilities. The attack on Haniyeh, in which the bodyguard was also killed, came after Hezbollah senior commander Faoud Shuk was killed in an Israeli attack in Beirut, reigniting tensions in the region and amid Israel's war on Gaza. Kanani added that the inaction of the United Nations Security Council and the political and military support of Western governments to Israel are the main factors behind the regional expansion of the Gaza crisis. Let's take another break. Don't go away. Glad to have you back. A murder investigation has been opened into Bangladesh's ex-premier Sheikh Hasina over the police killing of a man during the civil unrest. 6 other top figures in the previous government are also being investigated following weeks of deadly unrest in the capital, Dhaka. A lawyer, Mamoun Mia, who brought the case on behalf of the private citizen, said that the courts in Dhaka had ordered the police to accept the murder case against the accused persons. This is the first step in a criminal investigation under Bangladesh law. Hasina resigned and fled the country earlier this month, fleeing to neighboring India as calls grew for her to stand down. More than 400 people were killed in the weeks of student demonstrations that culminated in demands against Hasina. Many of them were shot by the police on her orders. The former Transport and Bridges Minister Abdul Qadir is among those being investigated. Hasina's government, which was in power for 15 years, was accused of widespread human rights violations and dodged by the allegations of rampant corruption. The students' protests began in early July, starting as peaceful demands as scrapped quotas in civil service jobs, before transforming into a wider movement much trooped the government. Hasina urged police to clamp down hard on the protesters, referring them as terrorists who were out to destabilize the nation. The recently formed new government contains many of the protesters and is helmed by Nobel Peace Laureate Muhammad Yunus. The Federal Bureau of Investigation (FBI) has opened an investigation into allegations from the Trump campaign that he was targeted by hackers allegedly working for the Iranian government. Iranian officials have denied any connection to the hack of the US government, has not formally accused Iran. The FBI is also looking into whether Iranian hackers targeted the Joe Biden-Kamala Harris campaign. The Trump campaign statement came one day after Microsoft released a report indicating that Iranian hackers targeted the campaign of an unnamed U.S. presidential candidate in June. The FBI began the investigations early summer after both campaigns experienced attempted phishing schemes. According to reports, 3 staff members of the Biden-Harris campaign were also targeted by phishing emails in the days before President Joe Biden announced that he was quitting the race. A Harris campaign spokesperson said in a statement that the campaign vigilantly monitored and protects against cyber threats and is not aware of any security breaches of the system. U.S. security sources had previously warned of an Iranian plot of assassinate Trump, unconnected to last month's attempted shooting in Pennsylvania. On Tuesday, the U.S. Justice Department charged a Pakistani man alleged to have ties to Iran with plotting to assassinate U.S. officials, potentially including the former president. United President Counter-Terrorism Police has charged 7 people with violent disorder over a break-in at the building belonging to Israeli defense firm Elbit in southwest England. The Crown Prosecution Service (CPS) said on Tuesday that 7 people have been charged with criminal damage, violent disorder and aggravated burglary over an incident at the Elbit system premises in South Gloucestershire. Members of the Palestinian Action were due to appear at London's Westminster Magistrates Court. Avon and Smith police said that the group forced its way into the building and assaulted staff after smashing the gate with vehicle and driving into the compound. Palestinian Action rejected allegations of violence against police and security staff, saying authorities had launched a smear campaign to prejudice the outcome of the trial and lay the groundwork of the police in unjustly use authoritarian powers. Israel's largest arms manufacturer is known to supply some 85% of the land and air ammunition used by the military. Elbit said that its United Kingdom's subsidiary employs 680 people at 16 sites, working on multiple programs for the British military. Since its formation in 2020, Palestine Action has forced the permanent closure of Elbit's Old Man factory and pushed the company to abandon its London headquarters. In 2022, the group's protest action led to the dissolution of contracts worth £280 million between the UK Ministry of Defence and Elbit's British and European companies to cut ties and Elbit permanently. With that report, we've come to the end of our bulletin. Before we go, a recap of the top stories. Police have released leaders of Tanzania's main opposition party on bail. Russia's president has accused Ukraine of undermining his country's stability. We also told you that Iran has dismissed calls to stand down threats against Israel. Thanks for being part of Foreign Desk on Benue Television. I am Susan Ayo. Remain blessed.